Go.
Well, welcome everybody to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out's very weekly look at Continental Championship Wrestling. On your screen, you see the one and only Jack Lord. There at the bottom, you see up at the top left corner there, Rodney West, the son of legendary NWA Hall of Famer. I made a did I say Rodney West or did I say Ronnie?
I said that.
Rodney is who we got. Ronnie was his dad. And we are glad to have you guys here for this show. We are looking at September 1985. The show opens on this particular version with some faces that we saw. If you're familiar with Continental, you get Lee Welch, you get Adrian Street, you get the Professor. At this point, he was going by the Professor, Bill Ash. We have discussed Bill on occasion on this show. Bill ended up being a fairly good trainer and a pretty good wrestling boot producer maker.
Well, his dad actually started that business. So, yeah, they were great.
And has trained some of the people that you see in some of the independents now, including, I think we mentioned last week, Matt Riviera, who I guess Jack told me that announced his retirement. But one of the things I wanted to concentrate on this episode of Continental is what they concentrated on, which was the brief run, and I do mean brief, of Dirty Dick Slater in this area. Dick didn't stay very long, but he actually served a pretty big purpose in speeding along the, or maybe I guess a word I should say is intensifying the already hot feud in the area of Ron Fuller, Robert Fuller, and Jimmy Golden against the Armstrong boys. For a very, very quick recap, the two Fullers and Golden assaulted Bob Armstrong in a cage match where Robert Fuller turned on Bob and kind of set this up. And Slater comes in purporting to help the Armstrong kids, Brad, Scott, and Steve. And in reality, in a week or two, is the exact opposite. He accepts a payoff from the stable, and it just intensifies the feud even more. One thing I wanted to talk about a little bit on this episode, we won't spend too much time on it, but we get to see a little bit of Lee Welch here on this show. And Lee Welch, if you're a fan like me, you probably remember maybe his run as a heel, as the king of wrestling, as he said it. Always cracked me up when he came out with the crown and some of his shenanigans. But Roy Lee here is in a little bit different role. Adrian Street, who is new to the area, brings a proclamation to the ring from Princess Diana, who at the time was very, of course, much in the news, as were all the royal family. But Adrian reads the proclamation in the ring, and actually at the end of it says, and forgive my French, I'll beat myself. We're in the heck, like it's Diana saying this. We're in the heck is Alabama anyway. Which
yeah, Adrian, he went through all of that. That was the punchline. The whole
that
thing.
Was it.
That was the punchline.
That was the punchline, and we get a match on the show early on with the aforementioned Dick Slater against Ken Glover. Jack, if you would, maybe tell us a little bit about Ken Glover.
Kent was one of the Mike Jackson guys, worked a lot of the independents around, plus did a lot of the TVs. He did Georgia, he did Continental, he did Mid-South.
He did Crockett too, didn't he?
Yeah. He was all over the board. Anywhere that you could find Mike, with Mike's group of guys coming in, you always knew those guys were good. And Kent was one of the good ones with him.
Yeah, and now, of course, we know a little bit more, obviously, from his time in Florida and other places about Dick Slater. At this point, he has not turned on the Armstrongs, and Brad Armstrong is actually out with Gordon Soley, selling, if you will, the friendship between Slater and the Armstrong family. We don't get it on this episode, but we do eventually get a turn, and he was not there very long. Also on this show, we get another couple of Continental mainstays. We get Norville, Austin, and Brickhouse Brown. Now, Brick, of course, I guess, is more famous for his work in Memphis and others. But here we've got Norville, Austin working as a babyface with Brickhouse Brown, and they wrestle Wayne Levinsky and a guy I'm guessing that Jack and Rodney are both familiar with, Mr. Raging Bull himself, Randy Barber. What can you tell us about Randy Barber, Jack?
Randy was another great guy. Sadly, we lost him to cancer probably about 10 years or a little, maybe even 15 years ago. Randy was a great guy. So funny in the back. Funny in the ring, too. I had to punch him several times, to get him to lighten up on the jokes because he was making me laugh. But, yeah, great guy. Great hand.
Well, and before my time, very, 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 very late in the southeastern area, Randy, I guess I can tell this now. Maybe they talked about it on here at some point. Randy was actually Mr. Continental, was he not, under the hood in Southeastern toward the end, right before it switched, right before they made the name change? Randy went under the hood as Mr. Continental, kind of a slap, supposedly, by Ron Fuller at Bob Armstrong there. So you got Norville, Austin, and Brickhouse Brown. In a bit of a diversion from you had the Nightmares, who were the tag team champions, fighting both Tommy and Johnny Rich on one hand, and then Norville, Austin, and Brickhouse Brown on the other. And they're discussing this in an interview where the Norville and Brick began going by a name, at least on the posters, as the Soul Patrol. And they were feuding with the Nightmares in addition to the Tommy and Johnny Rich thing. And Brickhouse Brown actually shows some fire here. I think of Brickhouse more of a heel character because I'm more familiar with, he spent more time in Memphis and he was mainly a heel there. But what can we learn, Rodney, what can you tell us? Did you get to know, this is a little bit before you and Brent and your dad actually came back to the area in '86. Did you ever work with Brickhouse, and what was that like?
The only time we worked with him was when he was in Mid-South. But and at that point, I'm only 15 years old, so and at Mid-South right. we're not allowed to back. But we always thought Brickhouse was pretty decent. One of the most beautiful drop kicks has ever been. Just beautiful. And Mid-South, he was in an enviable task of trying to take the place of the Junkyard Dog, which is impossible, and never should have even been attempted. But he was in one of those. But Brickhouse was a decent wrestler. Yeah, I thought he was awesome, and he's really good here and really shined here, more so than actually in Mid-South.
And the people actually seem to like him. The people in the Continental fans seem to kind of get behind. I mean, he was only here a short time, and then he, I guess, goes back to either Mid-South or Memphis.
Yeah, he gets back to Mid-South.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So we also this is one of the things I wrote down. I wanted to make sure I asked you guys. One of the matches on this show is Josh Stroud, who was actually if you grew up in the 80s like I did, you remember the old USFL, the football league that started up in spring, that had Herschel Walker, had Steve Young, Donald Trump was one of the owners. Josh Stroud actually played in the USFL. Josh Stroud was a good football player, tried to break into wrestling. Had some good matches. He's also the answer to a trivia question. Josh Stroud was an early Continental wrestling opponent of none other than Nature Boy Ric Flair on one of the first episodes of Continental, just a month or so before this. But Josh Stroud has a partner against Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden in this episode, and I want to ask you guys about the partner. His name on Continental was Jimmy Backlund. Mm-hmm. But maybe if you're a 90s wrestling fan, you know him better as one half of the Heavenly Bodies with Dr. Tom Pritchard. Did either one of you guys know? Did you know Jimmy? Either one of you? How did that come about?
I never really got to know Jimmy very well. I got to see a lot of his work, though. He was Jimmy Backlund in Florida. I got to see a lot of those tapes and, what little he did with Continental. And I was really not surprised. to see him finally getting that push with Jim Cornette in Smoky Mountain, because the guy was great.
Yeah, he could work. Yeah, and I thought, and one of our regular viewers over the last, dating back to before COVID for this show, and I guess hopefully he's still out there, Tim Horner, if you're out there tuning in. Jimmy reminds me here of I hate to say it, but kind of a poor man's Tim Horner. Could work, was very fast. Of course, he and Josh Stroud take the loss to Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden. One thing I thought was funny as we kind of wrap it up, I guess, pretty quick. One thing I thought was funny here is that Robert Fuller is still trying to get used to kind of playing the heel. And he comes out, and it's almost like he forgets he's the heel, and he throws his hands up and kind of looks around when everybody boos. But I
love that, though. I mean, I think it's great.
So
I thought he
one
did.
thing that you have to notice is they came out to the music of Bad to the Bone. Did you catch that?
Yes, and that was a good tease. What I wanted to ask you about, and this is kind of, I guess we should probably save this for a bigger moment, but I know we got to wrap it up. I wanted to ask both of you this, and I wish I could ask Brent, but we'll ask him sometime. I was thinking about it this week when I was looking at this show and some other moments throughout his career. Was there a better heel in the history of Continental Wrestling than Robert Fuller?
No,
if there was, I don't know who it would be.
And he was eating this up because this is, I think, his first time at it.
Yeah.
This is his first time, and he is loving every single minute of it, and you can tell it. This match with Jimmy Backlund and Josh Trout, if you notice, when they went into all four men was in the ring, the people really responded to all four men in the ring until they finally come to the end with the double, what was it? The double block. They had the double block. Yeah.
That was before they introduced the spike pile driver, I think.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say before we go, that covers a lot of ground. I realize that's a pretty big statement, but if you don't count Southeastern, if you only count Continental starting in June of '85, you got to throw in, obviously, his brother, Ron Fuller, the Tennessee stud. You got to throw in the Flame. You got to throw in Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden. You have to throw in, I would figure, Dutch Mantell, Rodney's boy, Kevin Sullivan. Mm-hmm. Later on, Eddie Gilbert. Some of the heels that we've seen in Alabama and the Continental promotion over the years. But I got to thinking about it. While all those guys were great, I don't know that anybody was better at being a heel than Robert Fuller.
No. And that goes through years and years of experience. Jimmy Golden, which we've, a lot of people don't want to talk about, but Jimmy Golden can stand on his own. He didn't need anybody else. Yeah. And that's the reason that Robert and Jimmy teamed together, because Jimmy did all the work. I mean,
I'll say this before we go, and I know we've got to. If Robert was the best heel, then maybe, and Jack Lord's been in there. He knows. So I'll just ask you, Jack, before we go, is Jimmy Golden maybe the most underrated worker in Continental history? Could he not? I mean, he was so good in the ring.
Jimmy was one of the best I ever shared a ring with. I mean, he was a great guy behind the scenes, but in that ring, he was one of the smoothest guys I ever encountered. I
heard people say it was like a night off. Would you agree?
Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah. Definitely was. Jimmy knew what he was doing. He knew how to make everything work. I got nothing but the highest regard for Jimmy Golden.
Jimmy Golden could have been a star anywhere.
Anywhere.
Without a doubt. And the thing about it is, he didn't go anywhere else because he made just as much money staying right, working for himself, than he would have if he went out somewhere else. Even when he was off, he must still make money. So
he was great. Well, are we ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, we're about out of time.
All right. Well, listen, we appreciate all of you guys and ladies tuning in to the Continental Look Back. Hope you'll be with us next time. And for Rodney West, for Jack Lord, for our good friend Brent West, we'll see you next time here on Pro Wrestling Inside and Out.